Hi everyone, so today's video is on Orientalism by Edward Said. But this video is solely on the introduction section of Orientalism and not the whole text. Before we move into the topic, let's first look at Edward Said. So Edward Wadi Said, he was a Palestinian American academic. He was also a literary critic, political activist, writer, and a musician. His groundbreaking critical work Orientalism 1978 is widely acknowledged as the cornerstone of what has evolved into a multifaceted and diverse conceptual framework, which is also commonly known as the postcolonial theory. Now, the publication of Orientalism created a stir. It caused a huge impact on the humanities and social sciences that has influenced academic scholarship in diverse disciplines, ranging from literary studies, anthropology, cultural studies, history and politics to women's studies, media studies, native studies, and fine arts. It has changed the way of seeing the Orient or the East, creating what can actually be called a paradigm shift. Said's Orientalism sheds light on the underlying structures of power, knowledge, hegemony, culture, and imperialism that have been historically embedded in the colonial discourse, a discourse that presents the Orient as the other. Now let's look into the introduction section of Orientalism. Academically, the term Orientalism refers to the act of studying or otherwise engaging with the Orient. Orientalism can be discussed and analyzed as the corporate institution for dealing with the Orient, that is, dealing with it by making statements about it, authorizing views of it, describing it, by teaching it, settling it, ruling over it. In short, Orientalism is a Western style for dominating, restructuring, and having authority over the Orient. So the introduction section attempts to define the term Orientalism, contextualize the work, and lay out the inherent biases of the author. We will see that here he states that his goal in writing Orientalism is to describe how the concept of Orientalism was constructed historically and how this construction of the concept of Orientalism served the French and British imperialist agendas and how Orientalism is constructed today. So while Orientalism is not an ethnographic work, one that is based on the primary collection of observations from a current human population, he also uses anthropological methods. Furthermore, he also makes a reference to Foucault's The Archaeology of Knowledge and Discipline and Punish to identify Orientalism. Said also mentions about K.M. Panikar's classic Asia and the Western dominance to indicate that the relationship between the Orient and the Occident is a relationship of power, domination, and of varying degrees of a complex hegemony. Now let's look into the concept of the civil and political society as discussed by Edward Said in the context of Western attitudes towards the Orient. So, civil society. According to Edward Said, civil society refers to the aggregate of non-governmental organizations and institutions that manifest interest and will of the citizens. This includes political parties, trade unions, and other such associations that work independently of the government. Coming to political society, according to him again, on the other hand, refers to the realm of the state and its apparatus, focusing on the exercise of the power and the formulation of policy. In Said's analysis, civil society often represents the democratic and liberal elements of the West, whereas the political society embodies its authoritative and coercive aspects. Said also discusses about power political, power intellectual, and power moral in the context of Orientalism. Power political refers to the influence, control, and dominance exerted by Western political entities over the Orient, often through colonialism, imperialism, or even military intervention. Power intellectual. Next, we have the power intellectual. And power intellectual reflects the ability of Western scholars, writers, and experts to shape perceptions and knowledge about the Orient, often through biased representation or cultural stereotypes. Lastly, we have power moral. Power moral encompasses the moral or ethical justifications used by Western powers to legitimize their domination and intervention in the Oriental world, often rooted in notions of cultural superiority and the so-called civilizing mission. Said then examines how these different forms of power intertwine and operate in the construction of the Orientalist discourse, which then again perpetuates a distorted and hegemonic understanding of the East within the Western thought and policy. Now, Said's exploration of how the construction of the Orient as a monolithic and backward entity shows that such construction has influenced the perceptions and policies towards the people as well as the cultures of the East. He also mentions how, in the electronic postmodern world, there has been a reinforcement of the stereotypes by which the Orient is viewed. Therefore, the television, the films, and all the media's resources have forced information into more and more standardized molds. This standardized and cultural stereotyping have intensified the hold of the 19th century academic and imaginative demonology of the mysterious Orient. In conclusion, the introduction section of Orientalism offers a critical examination of the power dynamics, cultural biases, and political implications underlying Western perceptions of the East, urging readers to rediscover or reconsider and challenge the established narratives. So, those are some important points that I've discussed from the introduction section of Orientalism by Edward Said. If you liked the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.